Hi everyone. So I thought I would discuss this article that I just recently read that just irritated me. So I wanted to kind of go over that article and read it to you. So the original article, I'd say the original title to this article was "Reading is Precious, but the Cult of Book Ownership Can Be Smug and Middle Class." So, because they got backlash on that title, they decided to retitle it. So it was "Reading is Precious, which is why I've been giving away my books." So this person says, "I'm donating my books to people who can most benefit from them. Why keep a novel that could delight someone else?" So I had said, I collect books that I love and want to reread again. Reread again and again. If years go by and I lose interest in that book, then I will eventually donate the book or sell it if it's worth any money. So she says, "I used to have, or rather hoard, a lot of books. Still do, I think, at least by the standards of the average home. But I'm doing my best to get rid. In the last couple of years, I have given away hundreds. If the thought of this fills you with horror, then maybe look away from this next part, where I confess that sometimes I even put them in the recycling. Only the really objectionable ones that I feel I am saving the reader from by taking them out of circulation." So I had said, what is considered the average home? Because I heard that owning more than 15 books in your home, or less than 15 books or less is the average. If you own more than 15, then you're not considered the average. So is she saying that she owns 15 books or less? So I also said, so because this person is offended by these objectionable books, she wants to deny everyone else from reading it. So why can't people decide for themselves what they want to read? Why does she think she has the right to deny others the right to read what they want to read? So it seems very narcissistic and entitled to me. She's essentially saying that people are too stupid to form their own opinions. So, for one, if it's a popular book, she isn't saving anyone's eyeballs from reading this book because there are a ton of copies out there, so this isn't the flex that she wanted it to be. So two, her point is stupid because I consider what she does as wasteful, and also she is censoring anyone else from reading these books if these books are not as circulated as other books are. So I said, three, some literature gets lost over the years, and I find that to be sad because that writer who wrote that book is now silenced, where with other books, they tend to get reprinted so future generations can discover these books as well. Unfortunately, some of these reprints can be edited from the original work, and that is considered, in my opinion, censorship. As an example, Lisa Kleypas has reprinted her books, and two of them that I know of, she has edited out problematic content. So that's the problem I have with this person who decides they want to recycle it because they find the book objectionable. If you didn't like the book, just donate it to somebody else. Someone else will read it and they can decide what they want to do with it. But it's very stupid and wasteful, in my opinion, to just put it in the recycling bin and essentially just throw it in the garbage. That's dumb. So she says, the big book purge began when I decided to go through the shelves and discard any book I was vaguely embarrassed to have in the house for reasons of quality, subject matter, politics, or author. Look at your shelves and you probably have your own equals. Since then, I've been jettisoning them every few months with no regrets. Only twice have I needed to look something up in a book I've thrown away and rebought a cheap secondhand copy. So I had said, so she has gotten rid of some books without rereading them before recycling them. Then because she needed the book for research, she has to repurchase the book. But it's okay because it's a secondhand copy. That doesn't make any sense to me. She actually makes herself look dumber in this article by her stating that because she didn't reread the book before she decided to recycle it, she now has to repurchase it because there are things that she needed for research or whatever else. And I'm like, that's dumb. That's dumb. You're wasting your money because you're repurchasing this book you got rid of. Yeah, that's dumb. So, some people treat books like totemic magical objects. I know I was one. About 10 years ago, my parents moved house at around the same time and gifted me a number of books about which they presumed I might feel sentimental, but which became a sort of albatross in my relationship. When I moved in with my husband, he had very few books, not because he is not a reader, but because he grew up in a Buddhist household, prefers an uncluttered environment, and places little value on physical objects. Once he has read a book, he simply donates it or gives it away, and holds on only to the ones he is sure he will reread. Extreme book fetishists may argue I should leave him, but why should he be forced to live any longer with my hoarding? So she keeps using this word hoarding. So I had said there is a difference between book hoarding versus book collecting. So I said, do you have a bunch of books that you haven't read yet and may never read? That could be considered hoarding. So I said, do you collect first edition copies, special edition copies, rare books? I would consider that to be collecting. I said, if you collect so many books that it becomes a health risk, then I'd consider it to be hoarding, but that is up to the person who is hoarding to seek help. So I said, if you have the space to collect physical books and it's not a detriment to you or anyone else, then I don't see the issue. And so this reminds me of that saying, you will own nothing and be happy. I said, collecting books makes me happy, and I find enjoyment in having books to read for the first time and also to reread those books again and again. So I don't think this woman knows the difference between hoarding versus collecting. She keeps saying hoarding, like it's a bad thing. So she said, I was thinking about him the other day when I saw an internet discussion about a man who told a bookshop employee that he only owns one book at a time, buying a new one when he has read the last one and got rid of it. The horror, how could he? I simply couldn't, people wrote, leading me to reflect yet again that on that contemporary tendency to treat having books as a sort of identity. So I had said, I don't consider it my identity. It's a hobby of mine that I enjoy. So then she says, this phenomenon is best illustrated by a poster that for a while was following me around the internet in advert form under the misapprehension that because I love cats and read books, and indeed have written a book about a cat, it had my taste in interior decor pinned down. The poster shows a cat and bears the slogan, that's what I do. I read books, I drink tea, and I know things. So I had said, so now this woman is offended by a poster because it doesn't identify her now. I said, you could still be a voracious reader that doesn't collect a lot of physical books. I don't see this as being a problem. So she says, apologies if you own this poster, but to me it encapsulates everything that is smug and middle class about the cult of book ownership. Let me read that again. Apologies if you own this poster, but to me it encapsulates everything that is smug and middle class about the cult of book ownership. I don't mean reading, provided you're lucky enough to still have a local library. That is a pastime that is accessible to almost everyone. No, I specifically mean having a lot of books and boasting about it, treating having a lot of books as a stand-in for your personality, or believing that simply owning a lot of books makes one know things. So I had said, so book collectors and hoarders are in a cult of book ownership, so we are smug and middle class. I said, I don't consider myself as being in a cult. A cult by definition means you don't have free will. So I said, I can choose whether or not I physically buy books. I said, also, What's with the hate towards the middle class? I said, I would be happy being a part of the middle class. I know what it's like being a part of the lower class, and it sucks ass. So as also some people in the book community can be snobs, but I don't personally boast about the amount of books I have. If she is offended by this, then it seems like she is more envious that she can't have that collection as well. So I just, that's very weird. Very weird, the way she said that. So she says, I understand that certain books can feel vital and precious. I grew up in a family where there were a lot of books on the shelves, though we couldn't always afford new ones. I've never forgotten the privilege of that, nor of the position I'm in now, where I am sometimes sent books free of charge. Perhaps that's why I find the idea of hoarding them rather sad. There's even a Japanese word, sandoku, for allowing books to pile up unread. Instead, I choose to donate mine to places where there are people who can most benefit from them, or leave them on the wall outside my house where they always disappear. So I had said, I grew up in a family where I couldn't afford a lot of books. Most of the books I was able to read, I borrowed from my school library or my local library. I don't consider owning books as being privileged. I consider it being blessed, and we all should be blessed in that way. Because reading books can open our worlds. It opens up our creativity. It makes us think. Privilege implies that you have gotten these books without having to do anything to earn those books. Where if you were able to buy books through hard work, then you are blessed. So I don't consider it being a bad thing if you decide to donate books that you aren't interested in reading. I have done so myself if I got the book as a gift and I am not interested in reading it. So it's like, say, a publication company decides that they want to go and send you a free book for you to review it. If it's something that's unsolicited, like you didn't ask for it, they just automatically sent it to you, then it's like it's in your right if you want to go and donate it to somebody else. If it's an ARC, you can't sell that. That's something that you can't sell. So that's something I'd say if you wanted to give it off to somebody else and they can read it, that's fine. Then you can do that. I don't have a problem with it's like, oh, I just get rid of these books that I got for free. If it's something, like I said, it's unsolicited, you didn't ask for it, in exchange for a review, and this person, the publication company, they decide to, we want you to just have this book just to have it, and they're not asking for anything in return, then it's like, okay, then you can just, get rid of it, and give it to somebody else. I've seen people who have donated their ARCs to other people, and that's fine. I don't have an issue with that. So, like I said, it's just, she's like, oh, I've been privileged. And I'm like, well, maybe you have been privileged because, your parents, your family was able to put you in a middle class household. Maybe she is from the middle class or possibly the upper class. Usually journalists and people who get into journalism, usually the family has money, some sense of money. So the last paragraph, she says, I found my own copy of George Eliot's Middlemarch by similar means. Inside, someone had written, read me, and it turned out to be the impetus I needed to tackle that great novel. Why keep it on my shelves when I'm finished, when someone else could delight in it as I did? My husband would say I'm still in recovery, and I certainly have more to get rid of, but frankly, I can't wait. So, also, I would say she's also getting the way she judges people and judges the way they have physical copies of books. It almost seems like she's getting all of her stuff from her husband, because her husband lived as a Buddhist for years and they don't consider, owning things and all that stuff. That's fine. If you want to live as a minimalist, I don't have an issue with that. The problem with that type of thing is, for me at least, I like to collect special edition copies, I like to collect books with original step backs, original covers when it comes to my romance novels, because they don't make that stuff anymore. So that's why I like to collect them. Same thing with like, I don't mind collecting special edition covers of books that are just, they're really pretty. The author decided to get an artist to create these special edition books for their books, and they want to go and sell those copies as well. I don't consider that a bad thing. It's like, okay, they decided to create these alternate covers. I personally, when it comes to romances, when it had like a couple on the front, you know, that was the original cover. And if an author decides to do an alternate cover, you know, with something different, with like no people on it, I don't have a problem with that. The author's trying to sell, you know, other books and stuff like that. Say if there's people out there that they don't like people being on the cover, I don't have an issue with it, but I can kind of, you know, okay, there's some people out there who just don't like that. That's fine. Not everybody has the same taste as me. So I could see readers saying, hey, I would love to buy this physical copy of this book, but I don't like the cover. Is there any way you're going to do an alternate cover? So if they get enough people asking for an alternate cover, there could be authors who are like, you know what, let's do it. Let's do an alternate cover, see how many books sell of these people who wanting to purchase these alternate covers. Like there's the, what's the author's name? I can't remember her name. Anyways, she now has books in Barnes and Noble that have alternate covers, and those ones are kind of like plain looking. Now, obviously, if they're popular and people like to buy those types of covers, then obviously the author is benefiting from it because she has these alternate covers. I personally liked her original covers with like the guys on it and stuff like that, and those are the ones I bought. I didn't buy the alternate covers. So yeah, for me, it's like, you know, obviously there are things that you want to collect, you know. Also, as I've said in my previous points, where I had said Lisa Kleypas has reprinted some of her books. A lot of her books have been reprinted. But I like to collect the originals because it shows the original way she wrote, where sometimes a new book, she'll have maybe, it could be something maybe extended. If it's something more, like it adds more to the story, like she decided to add an epilogue to it, I may decide that I want the second edition instead of the first edition, like if it adds more things to it. Like Ruby Dixon, for example. Ruby Dixon has decided to redo her covers because publication company decided to pick up those books. So she went and redid her covers. Some people like them, some people don't like them. It depends on what you want to buy. I personally, I like the new covers. I think they're really cute. And she also added in epilogues and added in, there's like, sometimes she added like short stories for those characters for the series. So that's in the book as well. So to me, it's like, well, that's a benefit because she's adding more things into the book. So that I would like to purchase the special edition copy for, where the original didn't have all that stuff. But I know there's going to be people who like to collect the original copies of those books. And eventually what happens is the stuff ends up becoming out of print, where you can't find that original copy anymore. So the authors don't print out any more of those any more of the original books. So now people, who I call basically scalpers, where they go and they sell off their original copy of the book and they try to rip people off for that book. It's ridiculous that people, you see people like, I'll try to find like different out of print covers, or out of print books for like Lisa Kleypas, and I'm trying to look for like a few of them, and I look and I see this person wants to charge $200 for the book, and I'm like, oh heck no, I ain't paying that amount of money for a book. Ridiculous. And that's the downside to some of these books that don't get like reprinted, is that, you know, people who have the original copies try to rip people off. So that's a downside to that. But I would say, like, there's another downside to books sometimes getting reprinted, is they end up getting censored. Like, there's a couple of books that she's written where people didn't like the scenes. Like, there's one scene where in one of the books where the one character kisses the heroine at this theater, where they're seeing something, and people were framing it as, oh, well, he didn't ask her consent before he forced a kiss on her. I don't see an issue with it personally from reading. It's fiction. It's not like it's in real life. So, I mean, you know, I can have certain things that I can kind of overlook, you know, when it comes to some books, where others I can't overlook it, and it kind of bothers me. So that one there, I read it years ago, so I'm like, okay, yeah, I understand where they're coming from, but also I can kind of overlook that part. And also, it gives a frame of reference of why the character is not a big fan of him, because it shows like them years later, and he's still you know, like pursuing her, and she's giving him like the cold shoulder. If you don't read the prologue, then you don't know why she's giving him the cold shoulder. It's like, okay, the author isn't explaining this to me. So Lisa had essentially cut out that prologue, cut the whole prologue out where it had that scene. And so to me, I'm like, you've now confused your reader, because now anybody who hasn't read the original book, they're now reading this reprint, and that whole prologue is erased, you know? And so now this person's like, well, why doesn't she like him? There's no answer to it. So that's very confusing. So it would have been better if she decided to redo the prologue and then, you know, redo the books. If she wanted to do it that way, okay, I can understand that aspect. I still think of it as a sort of censorship. And then for the other book, there was a sex scene that was removed because the hero had intimate, you know, relations with the heroine, and she was, I would say, buzzed. She was buzzed, a little bit intoxicated. So people feel like he took advantage of the heroine. So that's another book that people would say is problematic and they don't want to read. There is a thing called skipping. You could skim through that scene if you don't want it. I don't believe in removing it, because now you're removing access to other people who don't have that original copy, you know? So now this person reads the book and they may like it, and then they're told afterwards, like, oh, there was a scene in there that was missing. Oh, so now they have to go and try to search for this book, and it's like, now this book may be worth a lot of money that people are trying to rip off other readers, and all they want to do is read the original friggin' book, you know? So that's where it kind of is irritating, where you do reprints and all that stuff. And that's why, for me, I don't think it's right to just throw out a book and just, oh, because you find it offensive, you're wanting to essentially burn this book, you know? Like, she's not burning it, but she doesn't want anybody else to have access to it. And that, to me, is very selfish and very narcissistic, and, you know, shows your privilege, you know, shows, you know, that you do not want to have other people to have access to those books. That's wrong. That is wrong. So I may not like certain scenes in books, but I don't think it needs to be removed to, you know, to help anybody. That's the reason why there's trigger warnings. You could go and put a trigger warning at the beginning of the book saying, there is a scene in here where it shows that there's lack of consent, you know, because of an intoxication or whatever it is, you can easily put a trigger warning. If you want to re-release these books, you can easily put a trigger warning either at the front of the book or at the back of the book. But in the front, you could easily say trigger warning in the back. So in case somebody decides to flip through the book, they're not going to see the trigger warning and be triggered and be like, oh, I saw the trigger warning and it spoiled the book, because there's some people who do that too. They'll complain about the fact that, oh, trigger warnings are a spoiler. And I'm like, I don't consider it a spoiler. I consider it you're letting the reader know beforehand that there is a scene in here that could be problematic. It may trigger you and you may want to skip that. So I think it would be fine if the author decided to do that instead. But she went and started altering and editing out her work. And that to me is just, I don't like that. I don't like that. So ultimately, do I like this article? No, I think she sounds like an idiot. I think this woman sounds like a complete idiot. And to me, it's like, do what you want with what you own. You know, for me, I personally like to own CDs because, or not CDs, but DVDs. I like to own DVDs because there's going to be one day when that movie's not going to be available for me to rent, you know, online or to go and see maybe on like Netflix or Hulu or whatever it is. Eventually you lose the licensing to that movie, you know, and so it ends up going into a vault somewhere and you never see it for how many years. Or if some people deem it to be offensive, then people would essentially want to erase that movie. So for me, I like to collect the DVDs so that way I can watch them any time of day I want to, you know, in my own home, you know. This is my home that I decided to either you rent it or you've bought it, you own this, you want to put in whatever personal possessions that you think are important to you, you know? So personally, I like to collect physical media. I like collecting physical books so I can reread them anytime I want, you know, whatever time, you know, I want to. And same thing with DVDs. I want to be able to listen to or watch, you know, anything I want to watch. And even if it's offensive to some, because it doesn't matter to me about other people's feelings. It matters myself, my own feelings, how I feel about the book or how I feel about this movie. That's what matters to me the most. If you don't want to purchase that book or you don't want to purchase that DVD because it has something offensive or problematic or whatever it is to you, objectionable, whatever it is, then don't purchase it. That's the simple thing. If this woman wants to give away all her books because it's going to make her feel better about herself as a person, I don't care. You do you, boo-boo. You do you. But for me, I don't consider myself smug or middle class or in a freaking cult of book ownership. That is just completely stupid. It's gaslighting you. It's making you sound like you're in the bad for owning physical media. It is complete nonsense. So for me, I don't like that article. That really irritated me. I had to read it several times because some of the points she made were really idiotic and ignorant and just, you know, and like I said, she really doesn't know the concept between book collecting and book hoarding because there are differences to it. So yeah, anyways, that's what I wanted to say. I had to write things down so that way I get my point across fully because sometimes I forget different things. So it's better that I write down each point as the paragraphs go. So I thought it would be better to do it that way. But yeah, that's it for this video here. Tell me, what do you think about this article? I'll try to leave a link in my description so that way you could check it out yourself. You can read it for yourself and see, you know, what you think. Because I want people to form their own opinions. I want people to have their own voice to say what they think about it, you know, and go from there. I don't want to, what's the word? I don't want to give my voice as a thing to where I'd say, oh, well, my voice is more important, everyone should listen to me. No, form your own opinions. Buy what you want to buy. You know, sell what you want to sell. Donate what you want to donate. It's up to you what you want to do with that. But for me, I have reasons of why I collect physical media. You know, I have my own reasons. So, yeah, tell me down below, what do you think? And go from there. But have yourself a good day. Take care of yourselves. Be kind to each other. And I will see you all on the next video. All right. Bye.